So last time we were talking about luck, right? And whether all these seemingly random things that happen are actually part of like a bigger picture.
Yeah, like a grand design that we maybe can't fully grasp.
Exactly. And it got me thinking, our own lives are kind of like a journey too,
They really are.
with all sorts of twists and turns, and each stage has its own set of lessons to teach us.
I like that each stage has its own lessons.
And that sort of brings us to Dante, right?
It does, because we're diving back into the Inferno today.
Deeper into the Inferno.
Deeper into the Divina Commedia, but yeah, Inferno specifically.
And I guess we can think of each canto as like another step on that journey.
Absolutely. Each canto offers its own unique perspective, insights that we can apply to our own experiences, believe it or not.
Okay, so Canto 8. We're getting further down into hell, and Dante and Virgil, they end up at the edge of the fifth circle.
The fifth circle, yeah.
And it's this really grim, swampy place, right? Called the Stygian Marsh. I mean, talk about a bad day out.
It's not exactly a vacation spot.
No. And their boatman across this delightful place is a guy named Phlegyas.
Oh, yeah, Phlegyas, right. A rather unpleasant fellow, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, not the kind of guy you want to be stuck on a boat with, that's for sure.
No, not at all. And this is where things get interesting. They encounter Filippo Argenti while they're crossing the marsh.
Okay, yeah, Filippo Argenti, another Florentine. And I guess not exactly one of Dante's best buds back in the day. But you know what really struck me this time around? It's how different Dante reacts compared to some of those other souls they met earlier.
That's a really good point. How so?
Well, remember Paolo and Francesca and Giaco? I mean, Dante was practically in tears for them. He had so much pity.
Right. Earlier in his descent, he's often overcome with compassion and empathy, even faints at one point from the sheer intensity of his feelings for the damned.
Yeah, exactly. But with this Argenti guy, it's like night and day.
There's a noticeable shift in his demeanor.
He's basically telling him to stay put in the muck, you know?
No sympathy whatsoever. In fact, Dante even expresses a desire to see Argenti sink deeper into that mire.
He actually says, con piangere e con lutto, spirito maledetto ti rimani.
Which I think means something like, in weeping and in sorrow, a cursed spirit, remain there.
Yeah, that's a pretty accurate translation. And then he goes even further and says, Maestro, molto sarei vago di vederlo attuffare in questa broda.
Which is?
Master, I would be very desirous to see him submerged in this broth.
Wow, harsh. But then, and here's the really interesting part, Virgil actually praises Dante for being so tough on him. Like, good for you, dude.
Blessed be thou disdainful one, he says.
I mean, what are we supposed to make of that?
It's a fascinating juxtaposition, isn't it? And it forces us to really consider something important.
Yeah.
The distinction between human compassion and divine justice.
Okay, unpack that a little for me.
Well, we're often encouraged to be empathetic, right?
Right, see things from the other person's point of view. Exactly. But are there times when that empathy might actually blind us to the true gravity of someone's actions? Might even prevent a just outcome from happening.
I see what you mean.
Especially when that malevolence, as in the case of Filippo Argenti, seems deeply rooted in pride and violence. Sometimes, acknowledging the severity of an action without immediately seeking to understand or excuse it can be crucial in achieving a just resolution.
So it's not always about feeling sorry for someone, is it? Sometimes it's about recognizing that some actions have consequences, and maybe those consequences are deserved.
Precisely. Dante's encounter with Argenti challenges us to discern when compassion might inadvertently excuse or even enable harmful behavior. Indignation against true evil, especially when it stems from a love of justice, can be a virtue. It's a complex issue, one that each of us has to navigate on our own journeys.
Definitely a lot to think about there.
There is.
So they get across the swamp, thanks to Phlegyas, who I imagine wasn't thrilled about the whole ordeal.
I'm sure he wasn't.
Where do they end up next?
They arrive at the gates of the city of Dis. This is a significant moment in their journey.
Why is that?
Well, picture this. Imposing iron walls, glowing red hot.
Oh, wow.
And within those walls, you've got these fiery towers and what Dante describes as mescita vermigli, vermilion mosques.
Vermilion mosques. That's an interesting detail.
It is, isn't it? It's this incredibly vivid imagery that he uses to paint a picture of this formidable, terrifying place. And it really marks a transition to a whole new level of hell.
Okay, so it sounds pretty intense visually, but you said it's structurally important too. What did you mean by that?
The city of Dis is a dividing line in hell's structure. The circles above it house those who committed sins of what Dante calls incontinence.
Incontinence.
And by that he means sins that come from a lack of self-control over one's desires, like lust, gluttony, those sorts of things.
Oh, okay. So like giving in to temptation.
Exactly. But within dis, you find those who committed sins of malice, acts of evil that were deliberate and calculated.
So it's like a deeper level of wrongdoing, where the intention behind the action makes it even worse.
Precisely. It suggests a deepening level of depravity, where conscious choice and premeditation really play a significant role in the sin.
And getting into this city is no walk in the park. I mean, the demons guarding the gates, they just flat out refuse to let Dante and Virgil in.
They do, and it's really interesting to see how that unfolds.
Yeah, because Virgil, he's always been the voice of reason, right? Mr. Calm and Collected. And he tries to negotiate with them to explain their mission and why they're there.
But it's completely futile.
The demons are having none of it. They slam those iron gates right in his face. Can you imagine standing there and having these demonic figures shut you out like that?
It's a powerful image of rejection, isn't it?
Hmm.
And I think it speaks to those times in our own lives when we encounter obstacles that feel insurmountable. No matter how hard we try or how logically we approach the problem, we just can't seem to break through.
Right, like we're banging our heads against a wall and the wall just won't budge.
And what's especially fascinating is that even Virgil, who represents human intellect and moral strength, can't overcome this barrier on his own. It's a stark reminder of the limitations of human reason when faced with profound evil or truly significant challenges.
So sometimes it takes more than just our own efforts to get where we need to go, huh?
It does. Sometimes external intervention is needed, or a change in our perspective, a deeper understanding of the situation.
Makes you think, doesn't it?
It does. And this idea is further emphasized by the structure of hell itself, with the city of Discameri marking a clear distinction between these different types of sin.
You mentioned this hierarchy of evil earlier. How does that tie in?
Well, the way Dante organizes hell, with these sins of malice located deeper down, more heavily guarded than the sins of incontinence, suggests that he saw a difference in their severity. The deliberate, calculated acts are considered more serious.
It's like saying that the intention behind an action really matters, that it actually makes the sin worse.
Exactly. It's not just about the action itself, but the thought process behind it. And honestly, that's something we see reflected in our own world all the time, isn't it?
It is. We tend to judge someone much more harshly if they planned out something bad. Like premeditated evil is way worse than a crime of passion.
Exactly. It's a concept that resonates deeply with our own sense of justice. Dante just puts it front and center in the architecture of hell itself.
Fascinating. So as we wrap up this discussion of Canto 8, what would you say are the key takeaways? What should we be reflecting on?
I think there are three main points to consider. Firstly, the complexity of how we respond to evil. Dante's reaction to Filippo Argenti and Virgil's endorsement of it reminds us that automatic compassion isn't always the answer, and that a righteous anger, when it comes from a love of justice, can actually be a good thing.
Right. It's not about condoning the bad behavior, but about recognizing its severity and demanding accountability.
Exactly. Secondly, the whole encounter at the city of Dis, with the demons refusing entry, highlights the limitations of our own reason and strength. Sometimes we need help from outside ourselves to overcome the really tough challenges.
And that can come in many forms, I guess, whether it's divine intervention, the support of others, or even just a new way of looking at things.
Absolutely. And finally, the structure of hell itself, particularly the division marked by Dis, emphasizes that the intention behind our actions carries a lot of weight. It's not just what we do, but why we do it.
It makes you really think about the choices we make each day, doesn't it? And the motivations behind them.
It does. It challenges us to examine our own hearts and make sure that our actions are aligned with our values and with the desire to do good in the world.
Really powerful stuff. So, to our listeners out there, as you continue on your own journeys, I want to leave you with this thought. Think about the times when you've had to grapple with this idea of empathy versus justice. Have you ever encountered obstacles that seemed impossible to overcome despite your best efforts? And how does this idea of different levels of wrongdoing based on intention affect the way you view the world? It's definitely something worth pondering.
It is. Our journey through the Inferno will continue, and with each canto, we'll uncover more of these timeless truths that can illuminate our understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
Absolutely. Until next time, keep diving deep.